Supreme Court is absolutely last. In the judicial branch as well, you also have like the federal marshals. So I'm going to pass on the executive branch.
Yeah, it's gonna be this part.
Nothing on everybody.
Wait a minute, it's you.
Is it good?
Okay. Well, we're going to be discussing the federal government, and we're going to discuss the federal, state, and local level, and just with the basic overview of the structure. Like the federal government, as she just went over, the Supreme Court and the legislative branch, and the head of the executive branch is the President of the United States.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. The president is the head of state and with the head of government of America. He's also a diplomat. He not only decides the direction of American foreign policy, but he plays an important role in carrying out those policies. As a legislator, the president doesn't just propose legislation, he's actually involved with the process in seeing that the legislation becomes law. And as a party leader, in addition to performing government functions, the president serves as titular head of a political party. Does anybody know what a titular head
No.
is?
No.
Okay, a titular head is a ruler or a person or an official in a position of leadership who possesses few or any actual powers. And sometimes a person may inhabit a position of titular leadership and yet exercise more power than would normally be expected. As a result, their personality or their experience in the politics and the Constitution. And the vice president, which is limited, has a limited role of power. Notable roles includes presiding over or certifying official votes of the electoral college, and also casting votes in the event of a deadlock, which I learned the other day from Alicia about if the Senate, I can't remember if it was the Senate or Congress, if they're in a deadlock, the vice president would come in and cast the vote that would decide which party would be the majority party. Was it majority whip?
No, that's actually different.
Okay, that's something different. Okay, but the example was in my lifetime that I noticed, Dick Cheney gave a tie-breaking vote that gave the Senate the majority back in 2001. And that is the role of the vice president. Oh, that was it. That's what I just gave. Any questions? I don't know who's next.
Okay, the federal legislature is made up of, the House of Representatives as well as senators. And they're also doctrined by the first article of the U.S. Constitution, which you can find. We do have a resource at the end of this PowerPoint of the Constitution. The main purpose of legislators are to make laws and to regulate operations of the United States. So each one of the congressmen serve on different committees. Committees such as, there's 16 committees that the senators serve on, as well as 22 for the House of Representatives. Senate committees could be for aging, ethics, foreign relations, homeland security, and government affairs, to name a few. And that's for the Senate. And for the House, agriculture, budgets, House administration. Later on, we'll tell you how to access the information of all of the different committees and find out what's going on in each committee. The roles of the U.S. senators and representatives is to declare war, levy taxes, punish piracy, which is something that we might have all seen when we watch a video. And the first thing that comes up is you will be put down and fined if you copy this video. So that's actually what they do, is they regulate piracy. So we can move on. So I'm not gonna read every single item because at the end, you all who have been in attendance will get a copy of the code. So the differences between federal senators and federal representatives, majority is their tasks. So you're looking at also, number one, federal senators serve 6 to 8 years, and the federal representatives serve 2 years, but they can consecutively be voted for, I think, 3 or 4 times. I think it's 4 times. They approve, the federal senators approve president appointees, and they both actually impeach, but their role in impeachment is different. So while the representatives bring the charges for misconduct, then the senators would actually do the trial. And we can move on. So we can skip that, please. Okay.
So as I was previously saying, the federal judicial branch is divided into 3 levels. You have your U.S. district courts, your Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court. Your appeals court is going to be your appellate court. They hear the lower appeals for the lower level courts. Sometimes these can come from federal charges, other times they can actually come from state charges that have had to flow all the way up. Their reach and jurisdiction can be diverted as necessary by Congress. Sometimes their roles actually include things like special hearings regarding NSA tax and things of that nature. Your district courts are going to be the courts that actually try federal charges. Your federal charges are going to be the things, the laws that you break that cannot be tried on the state level. This would be like trafficking over state lines, treason, many others. The roles of the Supreme Court, this is actually the highest court in the country. This is going to be your national court. They're actually tasked with interpretation of the Constitution. They actually test the validity of legislation by determining whether the words or the effects encroach upon people's rights, upon the rights entrusted to the people in the Constitution. Sometimes you'll hear them say whether you should make a decision based on the letter of the law, which is going to be specifically what it says, versus the air of the law, which is going to be how the law ended up actually impacting the community and the people in society outside of what was technically written down, which is something that blacks are very often affected by. Very often they don't actually write down the fact that they plan on targeting us, but the air of the law ends up being just that. Decisions in this court are actually binding and final. It is very difficult, virtually impossible to actually appeal the Supreme Court decision. This is the only court that can issue a decision that will bind the state courts. So if the state court made a decision and it ended all the way to the Supreme Court has the authority to go ahead and override that decision. The Constitution does not actually specify the number of justices. So I think in most of our lifetime we're used to there being 9. They actually do not have to have 9. I think the minimum is 6 and the maximum is 10. So, as far as requiring a replacement for our deceased Chief Justice, it's not required. Additional roles of the judiciary. They actually have other
You have any questions?
Yeah.
How long is the role of the Supreme Court Justice?
How long?
Yeah.
So as we say here, they actually serve for life until they retire, resign, or are convicted. They are appointed by the president, and this actually includes all of the judges, Supreme Court, the appeals court, as well as the district courts. So the president actually appoints them all. So it's not just the big 9 that you need to be concerned about. You actually need to be concerned about them all. With the confirmation of the Senate. So most recently, Justice Garland was denied.
How important is the president's role in in electing Supreme Court justice? How does that affect like the local level?
So, the justices will end up passing laws that will end up impacting everyone. We can go ahead and, local level law is definitely massively important. However, the most notable case of recent was the decision to go ahead and make marriage a universal right for all adults. This impacted everyone across the entire country. So the roles of the president in doing that would be to make sure that their political views are reflected into the judges that they appoint. This was not always the case. It used to be a much shorter time to get a judge confirmed. That was also because the judiciary's power has grown over the years. So the fact that essentially they came in and the universal marriage was passed means that we now have a body. They're also responsible for making sure Obamacare stayed in place. So their role has increased over the years, which makes who actually puts judges in place massively important. Other roles of the judiciary are the other tribunals. This is going to be granted by the Articles 1 and 4 of the Constitution. This includes your veterans claims, your armed forces court. So if you end up unfortunately tried by while you're in the military, this is actually a role of the judiciary as well. That also include bankruptcy court, immigration court, federal claims, as well as tax court on the federal level. And now, for state.
All right, so we're gonna go over state government. State government, in a lot of ways, mirrors the federal. Florida, for instance, is established by a constitution. We also have an upper and lower house in our legislative, Senate and House of Representatives. Instead of a president, we have a governor who heads our executive branch and signs those over our departments and agencies that govern and regulate anything from the environment to taxes to health and education. And we also have the court system. We have the Supreme Court in Florida as well. And we'll talk about that.
Within the United States, the roles of the governors varies in the different commonwealths, in the different states, and in different territories. The roles are different. In Florida, our governor has policies that develop legislation and relations, and the governor oversees the chief of staff, which is responsible for daily operations and ensuring that state agencies are functioning properly. Any questions?
Yeah, what do you call a daily operation?
Daily operations are like the models of the organization of the office, strict bureaucracy, limited bureaucracy, spoken of will, policy development, legal counsel, legislative relations, communications with local governments, intergovernmental relations, emergency management, and also legal counsel and constituent relations and legislative relations as well.
How important is the role of the governor to a local community,
Okay,
in your opinion?
it starts with our city council. Just like mentioned before, on the higher level, if we get people in city council whose ideas and views reflect that of the governor, it's most likely that some of those laws that the people are lobbying for will pass.
Is there a lobbying body for like the black community?
Yeah, we are.
If I could add to that, the governor of this state decided to go ahead and limit the amount of money that he would actually take for Medicaid services. So the role of the governor can be definitely impactful to everybody's life, regardless of level of government.
Any more questions?
Yeah. How do we impact the role of the governor?
Well, we have to we have to not groom, but we have to plan ahead. If we want specific things done, we have to research the people who are actually running for governor and push the black agenda to them.
What if you got a governor in office already? How do you affect what he's doing?
Bills, bills and referendums. Say that again?
Which we will get into.
Oh, yeah, bills and referendums, like pushing issues that are interests of the black community, which is kind of hard at this point, dealing with the governor that we have. Because he's not seeing things our way. He's definitely not in favor of, I would say, the black agenda at this point, but we can push for someone to get in a governor's position that is totally in favor of the commission, because not only does it benefit us, it benefits others as well.
So we discussed the state legislature.
Before we move on to the state legislature, I wanted to add a point where the difference between federal senators and representatives, I forgot to point out, it's a really good example. Senators are the only ones that are able to challenge their own part, the only people within their own house. So, for example, Cory Booker recently, Senator Cory Booker, which is one of my favorite senators, he actually sat and opposed the appointment of Senator Sessions for the position of Attorney General, for Attorney General. So that's a big difference between what a federal senator, and a federal representative can do. Moving on to state legislature, it's very similar to federal legislation. Combination, once again, between state senators and representatives. The roles are a little different than what a federal legislator would do. They would work on state budgets. They would meet with their constituents, which is really important. They pass laws like the federal will do. They introduce legislation and raise funds for special bills and initiatives. The difference between state senators and representatives, once again, these senators serve 4 to 8 years, whereas representatives serve 2-year terms. The senators have 40 members, representatives have 120 in the state house. And from what I learned, the senators only represent certain districts, which I didn't realize. So when I learned that, I was surprised. Whereas representatives represent all districts within the state.
Question.
Yes.
When you say district, what do you mean?
The arranged alignment of according to the boundaries within a municipality or a
Of
county.
the state or
whatever.
the city or?
All within the city. Well, I'm sorry, within the state, yeah, within the state. So, for example, I don't even know how many counties Florida has, so now I think it's
67.
67, okay, so 67. So there's a representative from each county, each district within that